Good morning. How's everybody? Hope you're keeping well. Hope you've had a good start to your weekend. We are back with a recap of the news from the last 1 week on the markets as well as oil, gold, Bitcoin, and the US dollar. It's been a somewhat chaotic and nervous week for the markets. Kicked off with Jay Powell suggesting that equities are overvalued and that there may not be any further rate cuts, which was then substantiated by the data points that came out, which actually showed that the economy was on sound footing. And as a result, the markets got a bit nervous, in fact, quite a bit nervous, and went into a tailspin. And all the indices lost about 0.5% of their value in about 48 hours. However, then the nerves were eased somewhat by the numbers that came out on Friday, the core PCE numbers, which is the Fed's favored inflation index, that came out in line with expectations, and that eased the fears of the market. And the markets managed to brush aside what Jay Powell had said, not to mention the tariffs that Trump had imposed a night prior to that, which were pretty much brushed off by the markets. So the markets did bear some of the losses. However, they did all end lower than they had started the week. And as a result, the markets did actually experience some weakness. I think there is still a period of uncertainty. The next week is very important when you have the payroll numbers coming out. The ADP National Employment Report is going to come out. The JOLTS data is going to come out. And then next Friday, the actual employment numbers, which are going to be released by the government, they're going to come out. And all three figures are important figures in order to assess the strength of the labor market. And it is expected that they would show that the labor market has actually weakened. So that is again going to be go in favor of a rate cut, and that will encourage the markets hopefully. So the last 1 week, the markets have been on a bit of a roller coaster ride, and with the markets, so has Bitcoin, which fell from about 113,000 to 109,200. That is where it closed. Which is what happens. Bitcoin is a good marker of economic stability. And whenever Bitcoin takes a hit, that tends to go hand in hand with some sort of an upheaval on the economic front, and that's what's happened. The US dollar continued its weak run throughout the week, but managed to pare some of its losses on Friday before the market closed. Which is what was expected. Whenever there's market volatility, the US dollar does tend to gain in strength. The gold prices remained elevated and rose further on Friday before coming down somewhat, but gold prices remain elevated, and I think they will continue to stay that way. Oil prices have been going up, and on Friday they were like up and away. They went even higher before returning to some sort of a sensible level before the markets closed on Friday, and now it's hovering at about $68 a barrel. So on the whole, nervous week for the markets. The markets ended lower than the start of the week, but I think the markets are now returning to a rally because they got the PCE numbers where they wanted it. And next week, I think the job numbers are also going to be what the markets want. So hopefully next week will be a more stable week for the markets. We'll be back with a forecast for next week tomorrow, and then with further news on the markets on Monday. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you again tomorrow.